I was not elite, not an athlete, not a rower.
The first Australian female to row solo across the Atlantic Ocean.
I've proven that we can do anything as long as it's backed with passion, it's backed with following your heart.
Empowering you in purpose, personal stories, life lessons, and sustainable art. This is Tales and Tea with Lakshmi B. Hello everyone, and welcome back to our Lakshmi B podcast. I have a very special episode for you today. Our first interview guest of the entire podcast. My special guest is an audacious ocean rower who has defied the limits and conquered the world's wildest waters. This is a true life story of a woman who overcame the odds and made her dreams a living reality. Swapping her briefcase as a banker for healing hands as a massage therapist, to then listening to her heart and following a path of courageous adventure and purpose. She's done the Kokoda Trail, Himalayas, and shattered rowing records. With no prior training, she solo rowed across the Atlantic and is the first Australian woman to achieve this daring feat. She went on to solo rowing across the Pacific Ocean from Australia to Mexico with no pit stops or assistance. She has braved raging storms, crashing waves, and sharks. She has truly faced it all. An absolute powerhouse who has tapped into the power of her mind, crediting mentors such as the late and great Bob Proctor and Dr. Joe Dispenza. Her secret in life is to say yes, to start thinking you can and you will, and that your dreams are knocking. Her story is one of true personal transformation. Today, she is a multiple world record holder. She is the first Australian woman to row any ocean solo, non-stop and unassisted in 2018, thanks to the Atlantic Ocean Row. 3,000 miles, 68 days. She is the fastest woman in the world to row a 1 million meter, that's 1,000 kilometers, on a Concept 2 indoor rowing machine. This is the same one she used to train on. She is also the first woman in the world to row the Pacific Ocean solo, non-stop and unassisted. She was recently listed as Australian Geographic Adventurer of the Year 2019 for the Atlantic effort. Her story is a symphony of courage, resilience, and unwavering belief. A true testament to the human spirit and the thrill of chasing horizons. Everyone, I would like to officially welcome the one and only Michelle Lee.
Wow, thank you, Lakshmi. That's amazing. What a lot of pressure right there.
It's all you. You did it.
Wow.
It's so good to have you here with us.
Pleasure to be here. Thank you for having me.
I'm excited to get stuck into your story and get into the depths of how you managed to do what you have. And coming from the background that you came from, it's a true testament that it doesn't matter who you are or where we come from, that we really can achieve our dreams.
Yeah, absolutely. And, you know, that's one of the messages that I guess I try to really bring home is I was not elite, not an athlete, was not a rower. I wasn't an ocean-going farer. Yeah, I think I've proven that we can do anything as long as it's backed with passion. It's backed with, you know, following your heart.
Absolutely. Take us back to the beginning. How did this all come about, and did you always know that you were born to do something great?
I will issue a warning, and that is to be careful what you read. So after reading the book called Rowing the Atlantic by Ross Savage, I was so consistently and persistently plagued by this notion to row the ocean. And I guess it came at a time in my life when I was looking for more. I was really wanting more than this Monday to Friday, 9 to 5. I wanted to step out of this mass movement, you know, where everyone goes together, come home together. And I wanted to live an inspired life, you know, which meant that I had to step out of everything known to try to achieve that. And I had to embrace the unknown. I had to embrace that whole fear factor, doing it scared.
Wow. Speaking of doing it scared, take us back to that push moment where you knew that this is something that you really wanted to do.
Yeah, that moment, I remember it like yesterday, and I was sitting downstairs and I said to myself, this was in May 2016, man, if I don't do this, I'm going to die wondering. And that moment was what changed my life. And, it was a phone call to my bestie, simple as, guess what I'm going to do? I'm going to row across the Atlantic Ocean. And she said, are you, honey? How are you going to do that? I said, I don't know. I just got to get me a boat. So it was also quite scary to verbalize it because, once you put it out there, you've got to do it. So it's like you putting this pressure on yourself that if you want to live with integrity, to me, that is, doing what you say you will do. That means I've got to take action. So it was, that moment. And I now know this moment of, that little bit of, it's a bit scary. I know I'm on the right path when I feel that. I know that is when I'm going to feel most alive. It's when I'm going to come out of everything that's known. It's that moment of point of no return kind of thing.
Wow. Yeah. Getting to that point of no return. So this is something that I've got to do. You've decided to do it, which is a massive feat in itself to even get to that level mentally to decide to do something like this. Can you share some of the challenges and obstacles that you may have been facing, whether it was physical, mental, emotionally? Was there anything that could have held you back from embarking on this crazy adventure?
Well, I think firstly, it's yourself and your limiting self-beliefs they could paralyze you every single time. So I used to have, I call it the little birdie on my shoulder, it's the imposter syndrome, that voice that says, who, you? You think you can row an ocean? Like, who the hell do you think you are? That was the thing that I had to fight the most. And I found with every single hardship and challenge that I overcame, I was getting better and better at controlling that voice. And I think your limiting self-beliefs is number one. And then, of course, you've got doubters, you've got naysayers, you've got, negative Nancys that you're going to come up across who will fire things at you. And what I learnt was they're just projecting their own fears upon you. So I had to create filters. So that was the second thing. I knew I had to create some kind of, and I used to visualize a shield, or I would put myself in a bubble and then I would allow them to have their say. I'd smile sweetly and I would just let it ricochet and I'd see it bouncing off.
Wow.
So that became a really powerful tool for me. It was visual. Yeah. And the limiting self-beliefs, creating the filters, and then surrounding myself with people who would champion my idea and who were going to come along for this wild ride. So, you have to become very select now who you let in as well. And, that's a learning process. It's also, it can cause a little bit of grief because sometimes you realize you have to let some people fall by the wayside. So it's being willing to allow this to happen naturally. And if you sit back in a place of acceptance and let go of resistance, it's a process that is actually a lot easier to go through. And I just came to this acceptance that the universe has my back. The universe will deliver the people whom I need to allow this adventure to unfold. And as people would fall by the wayside, you do go through a grieving process because, I actually carefully selected my team, my crew, my support team back on land. One of the major challenges was our difference of opinions and how I just kept losing people. They just kept falling off, dropping like flies. I said to my friend, my ground crew is dropping like flies. And I realized it's because we're not in alignment with each other. So I had to then say, you know what? Thank you, universe. You are removing them to open the door for the right people to come. And that's exactly what happened. So, you know, with each unfolding of these events, and I find now, thanks to adventure and thanks to stepping outside of that Monday to Friday 9 to 5, that I have a greater trust in divine intervention, I call it. So I find that, you know, in particular, my first row, the Atlantic row, during the preparation, the most important person of, you know, getting me to the start line, he dipped out about, you know, 5 or 6 months before I was due to go to the start line. And it was in that moment of like absolute despair when I slid down the wall thinking I can't do this without him, because he led me to believe that as well. That then some epiphany, some light bulb moment came, and it was like the universe was speaking to me, and it said, Michelle, we need you to step up, darling. It's time for you to become the captain of this ship. You are relying on this man way too much. You're giving him all the control. You now don't even know your boat the way you need to know it. So I was like, oh my God, this is divine intervention. You know, and I have this belief that people come in and out of our world for a reason, and everyone serves a purpose. I hope that in my dealings with people that they are all of mutual benefit. And I also understand that nothing is forever. So I just have this beautiful acceptance now of the way the world works. And as long as you are operating from good intention, I believe that this is how it is. And it's been a really beautiful path and beautiful learnings that have come from being in those moments of despair and overwhelm. And, you know, it teaches me how resourceful we are and how resourceful we can be once we remove all of those safety nets and all of those creature comforts and we put ourselves in those really uncomfortable positions. That's when we get to really learn like who we are and what we're made of and what we've got.
Wow, that's so powerful. Something that was really coming to my mind is even in my own personal journey and of people that I speak to who have a dream in their heart and mind, but haven't yet taken the courage to actually go after it, or maybe they're trying to. And there is this common pattern and theme that I've seen where when you're actually in pursuit of it or trying to, there will be a lot of setbacks from your old life. I guess you could call it a paradigm. And that thing is drastically holding you back, and it could be through circumstances or people. And you mentioned the people that you knew you had to cut off who were almost making you believe that you couldn't do it without them. What are some practical tools and strategies or even a mindset that you could share with someone who's facing that right now to have the courage to get out of that situation?
So to keep your eye on the prize, and so that goal, that dream, and to become very emotionally connected with it. Sit down in a nice quiet space away from distractions and visualize what it actually means to you, you know, what your life is going to look like when you achieve it, and become very emotionally invested in that and connected to it. Well, what it did for me was it also gave me, in my moments of struggle, it gave me the clarity to keep recalling it. I used to say, I just got to stay true to my compass. I got to stay true to, you know, what's going on here, you know, that gut feeling, that vibrational feeling. So my decisions were made on a feeling quite often of whom I need to let go and whom is going to, you know, be supportive and going to be here to the end as well. That was the other thing. Who's the stayers and who's in this for 5 minutes? You want to sift through that as well. Also to have that whole brain and heart connection, you know, so in order for you to hold the course, stay true, you need to make sure that there is no conflict between your head and your heart. You know, to sort of be saying, oh yeah, I want to do this. And in your heart, you're thinking, oh yeah, but I'll never be able to do that. That's conflict. And the universe, it needs clarity. You need to be crystal clear. So keep replaying it like a movie in your head. And you play it in the perfect scenario, I know that things will never happen or in my life. They've never happened in that perfect scenario, but I know that it will happen. And it doesn't matter that it's not, exactly as the picture unfolds in my head. However, I know I'm going to get to the start line, and more importantly, I'm going to get to the finish line.
Yeah.
And I want to talk about struggles with the finish line. It's often the struggles that gave me the strength to not quit. So when I would reflect on how hard I'd worked to get here, and I realized, I deserve to be here on this start line. I've put the work in. It gave me that sort of edge, gave me that mongrel, when I was doing it tough, to go, I have worked so hard, I am not quitting. Like, we are going to get to the end of this. So there's, for me, a big level of appreciation in the struggle now. I appreciate it and I understand the need for it. If it's all handed to you on a silver platter and it's too easy, quitting's going to be easy as well.
Yeah, that's huge. So you would say that, because I know we all feel pain, and pain can be so discouraging from pursuing anything. You think, why should I bother? I could just sit here in my comfort zone. But this is a true testament that you would say pain is necessary for doing something like this, but that it won't last forever. It is part of the process in making you that person who wins in the end of the journey.
I love that. Reminding yourself this will not last forever. It is but a moment in time. And what I really love and appreciate about adventure is the way it increases your tolerance for curveballs. And, when life throws some challenges and curveballs at you, and, there's speed humps and there's blocks and things that will inevitably come across your path in just normal everyday life. Adventure has increased my tolerance for those. So now they come and go. They're not such a big deal. Your coping mechanisms, they're refined thanks to those. And, it's only short bouts of discomfort. Okay, so out of my whole life, you think the Pacific Row was 240 days, but what that has given me for moving forward is just like, it's off the charts in terms of my tolerance levels and ability to cope with little things that, would normally upset and derail people. I'm just like, it's just water off a duck's back,
I love that. So you've already touched on this already, but how do you move through pain? So you know that pain is a part of the process. You know it's necessary. You have achieved this thing. You've gotten over the hump to the end, and looking back, you can see how important it was. But for someone who hasn't gotten to the end, who hasn't seen the finished vision, how did you move through pain in those moments where you were tested?
If I talk about the pain of, say, my hands on the Atlantic Road, they were cut open. I had open wounds. My calluses had torn, so it was just raw skin. And every single time I grabbed the oars after any sort of break, I would be gritting my teeth. What I learnt was to breathe through it. Breathing is essential. Breathing and learning to breathe properly is also really empowering as well. But going into the meditative state, that's also extremely helpful with pain. And then you use the power of your imagination, which by the time we hit school age, we're told to stop daydreaming, but it's in this imaginative state where I believe we reach this, it's like a pharmacy, to be honest. We've got our own pharmacy. And I could use my imagination where I've now learned I was producing all of those feel-good hormones, oxytocin, serotonin, dopamine. We can produce them just by thought alone. Same as we can produce all of the stress hormones by thought alone. So knowing this, knowing the capabilities of our bodies has got me through all of those painful moments. And it just gets better and better with every single thing I do. This self-empowerment is just getting stronger and stronger. And I want the world to know about it. I want everyone to know how powerful we are and how we can heal ourselves. It was important for me to know that I could heal myself in the event that I had a toothache, an earache. You know, what if I developed appendicitis? So it forced me to go and seek techniques that would support this. And I had to change my whole paradigm as well, you know, so going from being brought up with going to the doctor, using Western medicine, getting the prescription filled, I have now done a complete flip where I absolutely know and have faith, 100% confidence I can heal myself.
Wow. That is incredible. I know there's quite a bit of science coming out about this now, which is incredible. And I know we both follow the work of Dr. Joe Dispenza. He often speaks about the science behind this type of faith. And when you think about it logically, whether it's something you believe or not, we know that stress is making us sick. So it would only make sense that the opposite of that would be so. And it's so incredible to hear you as someone who's actually lived this out, that for anyone at home, just by your thoughts, your faith, you can really turn your situation around. And I think that's so important. I love that.
Yeah, and I had to develop these techniques that I had an opportunity to try them, to test them, so that I could trust them when I was out there. And, you know, being in the middle of the ocean, you can't just get a chopper to me if I was in need of medical assistance. You know, at best, I might be 2 weeks from a commercial ship that would have had to divert their course to come and provide aid. So I had to know that I had the tools within to be 100% responsible for myself. And today I can sit here and say I've tested them in the most extreme circumstances, and they work.
Yes, you have. I was like, yes, you have. This is the best example. Wow. I want to go back to the power of visualization. I know you talk a lot about that, and visualizing the win, visualizing the healing. How important is the power of visualization?
Yes, I think for setting the mindset into that win mentality. And, you know, like I said, I crossed that finish line 1,000 times over before I even built my boat. So what does that actually look like? That is yes, it is a fist pump moment. It's like, and then you've got to feel the feeling. So like, sit down in front of a mirror and do this. Really get immersed in it so that you feel the feeling. This is now creating that emotional connection to what it means. And then know that you can actually recall this feeling at any given moment that you need to change your vibration. It's a vibration that you are now creating. And this is how I built my self-belief. It was through doing these little tiny acts of play, really. You know, get playful, have fun, and just see it as done.
Wow. That is so cool. I love that. This is something I do in my own life, and it's so incredible seeing how this works with different people, different circumstances. You don't have to be specifically an athlete or an entertainer, that this is something that can work in any industry.
Oh, absolutely. Like if you're in sales, before you pick up the phone to make that call, play it in your head how you want it to go. See it exactly how, and then I tell you what, when it's 3, 2, 1, go, pick up the phone, you will be acting completely different if you hadn't spent just a few minutes being very focused on your intention and giving attention to exactly how you want it to play out. The results will start to reflect.
Wow, this is so good. It's funny when you're speaking, I'm even recalling some of the times I've applied this. And when you said sales, I worked at this sales company, and anyone that knows me, I hate sales. I can't stand it. Yet somehow I was in this arena. Very similar to what you said. I visualized being the number one salesperson in that company, went through a lot of what you have described, and it happened. And it was surprising to everyone. I didn't have the personality specifically that you see in sales. I was more introverted and still managed to achieve this. And I just love it, because this is something I really want to share, you know, with viewers at home. anybody who has a dream in their heart that, like Michelle was saying, this stuff really works. It really does. And I know it might sound silly to some people, but like Michelle's saying, have fun. It's really fun visualizing it, and you'll be amazed at what comes out of that.
Yeah, spend time in daydream. Even when it came to, I put it to the test with a tear in my elbow, and I wanted to heal this by myself, and I needed to do it super fast. I didn't have the 12 months that typically this should take. So I used to get so playful in my meditation that I would either, two ways, depending on my mood, I would either imagine a granny sitting there on a rocking chair with a darning needle, lovingly stitching it back together. Or if I was in another mood, I would imagine like a whole army, and they were like marching. It was like, come on, we got to get in the trenches. We got to get in there. So, and I used to have fun doing it.
That is so cool. I love that. That's such a good example of that. I want to talk about courage, and I find, especially for people who haven't gotten to their end point yet, or they haven't really experienced success, so they've got nothing to reference. In embarking on a journey like this, how did you take courage to take action? And for someone who might be in a stagnant mindset, what's something you could share that could actually break that?
Okay, so what I did was I imagined, it's so simple, I just imagined not even giving this a crack. I just imagined living with the regret one day of having not even given this I come up with this saying, just give it your best red hot shot. And that didn't sit well with me. I was like, why would you waste this life, this opportunity? You're fit, you're healthy. It just didn't make sense to me. And that's as simple as that. Imagine your life if you passed up the opportunity simply because of fear, I might fail. Rather, look at it as what you're going to gain, the skill set that you gain when you do these sorts of things, the people that you're going to meet. And it just broadens everything. Take the blinkers off. And I've been amazed at the people that have come into my life. The skills that I've learned. I can now stitch myself up. I can stitch my leg up. I can reverse park a 9-meter trailer with a boat. I can pull up at a boat ramp and confidently throw that boat off the back of the trailer. I got involved with the boat build. So, now I've got a really good idea of what goes on underneath all of the deck and the panels and how these things are held together. Again, getting that involved with your project also boosts your confidence as well in your gear, your equipment. It also taught me that I can learn new skills, man. I don't have to just stay in this, Monday to Friday. I'm a massage therapist. I don't use tools in my job other than my hands. So for me, it was really important to really throw myself right in there so that, I've got a good understanding of epoxies, of resins, of, how to stick things back together. And also to know that I could have cut my boat into pieces if I had to makeshift something while I was out there. It just opens your whole mind. And I can picture in my brain all these lights just lighting up and going off. We're rewiring all these new pathways. And that's exciting. It just makes you realize you'll cope with anything.
Wow. It's like really focusing on the excitement and that the gains are way bigger than not taking the chance.
Totally. Yeah. Absolutely. Yeah.
Wow.
And you just feel so alive while we're doing this stuff, Yes, a little bit scary, but again, fear is the same. If you look at it from a biological and physiological, look at all of those reactions, it's the same as excitement. So just reframe it in your mind. Reframe it as, I'm excited.
Wow. I love that. I love that so much. I want to get into the planning of your Great Rose. How did this come about, and what was the actual planning of your journey like? Walk us through that.
Allow about 2 years. So the Atlantic Row, it took longer, more so because of funding or lack of funding than anything. It involved building a boat. It involved learning to row. It involved me having to go through all of those physiological adaptations to become a long-distance stamina endurance style body. And that all takes time. It made sense to do that world record, the 1,000,000 metre, because the training for that was about 6 months as a non-rower. If I had have been a rower, it would have been a lot quicker. But because I had to A, learn the technique, B, I had to also go through all of those adaptations to become long-distance stamina endurance, to be able to maintain 14 or 15 hours on that machine for, up to 6 days. We're chasing a record. So I did have a very clear idea of the numbers that I was chasing. In addition to that, I also had to maintain and run a business. So I was self-employed massage therapist and personal trainer. I had to still be able to service my clients because I'm in a position of, if I don't work, I don't get paid. My whole life basically had to change overnight. When I decided I was going to do this, I had to get a flatmate because I knew I had to try to decrease my outgoings, knowing that I wouldn't be able to work to the full capacity that I was accustomed to. So my dollars were going to be affected. I had to learn how to do campaigning. So I had to go door knocking on potential sponsors' doors and try to sell myself and invite them to come on board and to give me a whole lot of money to come on this journey. And, they're asking me, well, who are you? What have you done? I'd done nothing to prove myself. So again, doing that world record made a lot of sense because now if I could say, well, I'm Michelle Lee, I'm the fastest woman in the world to row 1,000,000 metres, I've got the world record. I thought that would make getting sponsorship a lot easier. In fact, it didn't really change anything, but I didn't know that. Anyway, it was a very good motivator. And build the boat, which meant, okay, you buy the design. I decided what ocean rowing vessel I wanted to row. There was 2 or 3 designs I could choose from. I went with old school. I went with traditional, the very first ocean rowing boat design. Then appoint a builder. There was an epic fail with that. A lot of heartache, a lot of money spent and wasted on that experience. My coach, mentor, I thought, why don't I just get in touch with someone that's been there and done this? So in the very first instance, it was, right, let's speak to someone that's done it. Let's go straight to get the information from the horse's mouth. So I found one person in Australia, contacted him and said, how do I become part of this phenomenon? He ended up becoming my coach, my mentor. He ended up becoming the boat builder when we had to bring the boat out of the boat building yard because things weren't going as they should. So he also became the project manager. He also became my boyfriend.
Oh.
Now, there is actually a bit of a moral to this story, girls, and that is don't put all your eggs in one basket. We must diversify our risks because when that all fell to crap and he exited and I had, a unfinished project, plus I believed that I wouldn't be able to do this without him. He had me believe I couldn't finish this without him. He's the only person I knew in the world that could row an ocean. He's the only person that knew how to build the boat to the very specific specifications. How could I trust anybody else to build this boat? They don't know what you're going to go through out there. So these were the sorts of things that he was saying to me that led me to momentarily believe I can't do this without him until, remember, I had the epiphany moment where I realized the universe was intervening very divinely and saying, you need to step up, Michelle. You need to start taking control. You need to make these decisions because you're right. When you're out there, you will have no one else to depend on. So once I start to see it for that, the plans continued. I then had to find someone else to help me finish the boat. So I knocked on the door at the Hills Men's Shed and I said, I know I'm a girl and it's the men's shed, but I knew collectively that they had the skills, they had the time, they had, the enthusiasm. So they took me on as a project. Me and my boat, we'd turn up every week in the car park at Borco and we would work on my boat on the trailer. So I said to them, I need you to give me the confidence to drill the holes and to do what I have to do. And they did that. It was a beautiful experience. So yeah, between the campaigning, the learning to row, the running my business, and then all of those little hardships along the way, many times the red carpet got pulled from underneath me where I wondered how I was going to get there. It's funny to say that. This might sound really contradictory. I somehow knew I would always get there, but I often wondered how. I didn't know the details. But this is where I've learnt about the universe and staying true to your compass, that the doors will open. So it's been proven to me many times, so much so now that I just have a knowing that everything you need, everything you require will come as long as you stay true and you don't falter. That was the journey to the Atlantic. Building the boat was obviously the biggest thing, the biggest expense, so that by the time I decided I was going to row across the Pacific Ocean, my focus was very different. I was able now to focus more on my mental toolkit because, we had the boat. All my weaknesses and shortfalls were highlighted thanks to the Atlantic, my maiden voyage. So I was able to direct my attention and focus on different things this time. Yeah, I refined and tweaked the boat for the Pacific Ocean. I simplified a lot of my systems. But the journey was a little bit different in terms of getting my sponsorship, because now I had some runs on the board, they call it. I was now proven. I was now, I guess, in the eyes of someone wanting to come on board, they could have a bit more trust, faith, confidence in me that I'll finish this thing. So that was a bit of a different journey, and also just my ability to actually ask for help. It felt more justified now, more warranted, that it wasn't as difficult to do the door knocking second time round. That's the thing, we just got to keep putting ourselves in these situations frequently enough that it almost desensitizes you to it. And so the journey was 2 years basically for each row. And the Pacific had different challenges because I did it in a time in history that placed all those restrictions on us. I did all my prep during COVID. I call it my COVID project. And it was, faced with different challenges.
Yeah, geez. There are so many things I'd love to ask you about. Just thinking about, to put this in the best way that I can, being a woman and going on a massive feat like this, something that has happened to me in my own life is sometimes there might be some guy who comes into the picture and will try and take over everything or fill me with doubt to think that I cannot do this without them. And I'm so blessed. I have some incredible men in my life. I've got wonderful male friends. I've got brothers, my dad. But even still, I have had issues in relationships or with dating where I've had someone come into my life and almost sabotage everything. How did you move through that? And moving forward, what are some red flags or things you could share with us that we can look out for to prevent something like this happening? Or if it is happening, how did you get out? How do we get out?
Yeah, I think to understand people's motives and agendas. So it's not something that I was even remotely aware of on the Atlantic Ocean preparation. Through life's experiences, you become more conscious and more aware of it. So I will see those signs now as, lights, flashing bells, buzzers from a mile away. The universe delivers things in forms of, I look at it as a lesson. So how do you become aware of these? I think it's ask the right questions and be direct. Don't be afraid to be direct. And I think people are afraid to be direct because they're afraid of the answer, because they actually know what the answer is. And it might mean breaking away. It might mean closing that door. And it can be scary, but this is one way to avoid any drawn out, prolonged and inevitable hardship. It's just by asking the question directly what your gut is already telling you. And I think bring that back to following your intuition. Again, something we're sort of not encouraged to do as we get older. I feel like we lose touch with our intuitive side, whereas I've had to rely on that because I've stepped outside of the comforts of Monday to Friday 9 to 5. So yeah, listen to that gut feeling because it's never ever wrong and it is there to protect you. And don't be afraid to confront something directly. You know, what I've learned is you don't have to be aggressive. You don't have to be confrontational in the way you do it. Because sometimes I've been afraid to confront it because you feel like it's going to be a big fight. Do you know what I mean?
Even in my own journey, I haven't always had the courage to confront the people that I need to. You know, with experience, you get better at. So I remember in my younger years, obviously like my early 20s, I got messed around a lot by people in the industry and I lost business, money. A lot of things got messed up that didn't have to because of situations like this. With your journey, what gave you the courage to overcome that fear and just actually confront these particular people?
My courage came from don't die wondering. So I kept reminding myself, do you want to get to a place of regret that you didn't even give this a shot? Those three words for me are just so empowering. They demand you to take action. So I just say to myself, don't die wondering, Michelle. And then, I don't know, now it is like a programmed mindset for me that means we won't take no for an answer. And it means that you will find a way, no matter what, you'll get there.
Yeah. Wow. I love that you brought up the mental side of it. As you were going through this journey and cutting off certain people and preparing and the door knocking and getting out there, what were some of those mental conversations that you were having with yourself in preparation for this trip?
For me, mentally, it was having the skills. So once I learned the skills for all of the different scenarios that I could come up with, every time my confidence was building. So I was becoming this person. I wasn't always this person, but with every new skill set, I was, just quietly saying, okay, we've got this. Having a plan for worst case scenario, I wasn't being a drama queen. I used to tell myself I have to consider worst case scenario, not to be the drama queen, but just to know that you will have some kind of a plan, a rough plan, so that it gave me the ability to think quick on my feet in those moments, storm strategies, my health, my well-being. I just had to have a plan. And no matter how rough it was, it got refined when I was out there. And I actually think that was better for me. I wasn't hell-bent on it going one way only. I think having the flexibility to apply these things to a whole range of different things is the way to go. So don't be hell-bent on just one way to do things. Know that I say it to myself all the time now, there's plenty ways to skin a cat. Yeah, be flexible.
Yeah, wow, that's so good. I think the biggest thing that I'm picking up is that often in my mind, maybe you could call me like a type A personality. I like to have my lists and like everything written down in a certain way and I perfect it. Sometimes I overly perfect things to a point where I'm almost limited from even taking the action. And one of the biggest things I'm learning from you is the beauty of the courage to just dive in. And maybe that we don't always have all the answers or we don't always know what to say or have particular thoughts, but you're such a testament to someone who just, like you said, says yes and takes action and you trust the process and everything kind of comes together in harmony. And I think that's so freaking powerful.
Yeah, I always say that everything I do every day to get to the goal, I imagine this vortex. I imagine a cylinder, which I call the vortex. And everything I put in, it's starting to build some smoke. And I see it circulating. And the more and more I put in, it's becoming, denser and it's building. And whilst you don't see the results immediately, so forget instant gratification. That's a very big tip that I want to give everyone. Don't expect everything to happen today. Don't expect to get the thumbs up, the likes today, but know that everything you keep putting into that vortex consistently and persistently, that's energy. And that is what is then going to go up into that nice quantum space where anything is possible and everything. Once we reach that vibrational match, that's when you're going to start to see and experience and live all of those coincidences, those meaningful coincidences, those serendipity moments, you know, where you think, oh, and then just out of the blue, these appeared. Well, it's not a coincidence. It's because you've been feeding all this good stuff into the vortex. It will always pay off. I know that for a fact. Wow. And every day I used to say to myself, is doing that going to get me there? So I became really conscious of my decisions and what I said yes to. Would it serve me to get to the start line? Would going to those parties on Friday night, waking up shady on Saturday, is that going to get me there? No, not at all. So it becomes about, just being really conscious of energy and where you invest it.
Yeah, wow, absolutely. I love that. I love it because I know we've talked about the vortex and the visualization, and I'm so much more aware of it now. And anytime I do something, I think of you. I'm like, oh, I'm putting this into the vortex. Oh, that's going into the vortex.
Yeah.
And I'm so excited to see like where that goes and what comes out of that.
Yeah.
I love that. I want to move on to the actual embarking of the journey. So you've gone through all the steps. You've left your old work environments. You've done the planning and the preparation. So now we're getting to the part where you're actually about to take that step and go on this journey. How are you feeling at the beginning of this? And was there a temptation to give up? Was there a thought of, oh my gosh, you've got the boat, you're looking at the ocean, you know you're going to be out there for a long time. What was going through your mind?
I remember the morning of departure, say, for, let's say, the Atlantic Row, which was very different to the Pacific because the Atlantic was, in fact, a professionally organised event. You know, there was other rowers and there was this whole vibe and atmosphere. And I remember laughing as I was walking down to my boat. You know, I was due to cross the start line at about 3:05 in the afternoon. It was all done. Everyone crossed individually 5 minutes apart. The solos went last. And I remember feeling like, this isn't even real. Like I said, is this actually happening? And as I was rowing out and I thought, wow, this is the last time I'm going to see shore. Like I'm rowing away from shore for the first time. So I was experiencing losing sight of shore for the first time, which I hadn't actually played in my mind. I didn't go through that. So I thought, oh, this is interesting. And I remember the other rowers all going in a very different direction to me. And I'm thinking, oh, do they know something I don't know? So it started making me question my game plan because everyone had their own weather router. And I had discussed at length with my router. We'd looked at the currents, we'd looked at the wind. So I had to remind myself to stay in your own game plan. Don't be influenced and tempted to throw the game plan out because everyone's going that way. It was just this amazing feeling of coming into my own and trusting all the work that we'd put into this in the first place. 2 days later, I came out of my cabin and there's no land because we go so slow, so it takes a while to lose sight of shore. And I thought, okay, this is it. There ain't no turning back now. And I never ever once remember thinking or saying, oh my God, what am I doing here? I used to remind myself on those hard moments, I am exactly where I want to be. This is what I have worked so hard for. So I used to come into appreciation and gratitude more than anything, that I am actually here after everything we've been through. And then the Pacific was very different. You know, the departure was at 1:30 in the morning. It was getting really difficult for me to leave because I had spent 2 months in Mexico. I had developed so many beautiful friendships with the Mexicans who embraced me and my story and took me in as family. And I had been there for 2 months. So every day that was passing that I wasn't out there was getting harder and harder to leave. And I said to myself, if I don't go this week, this is not going to happen. I could just feel it. You know, I could feel my attachments to Mexico. And anyway, so the departure was, and the feelings were very different. And I knew I had to work a lot harder. leaving Mexico. The conditions weren't favourable. I had everything trying to push me back on land. So I was in a very different headspace of I've just got to put my head down, my bum up, is that right? My head down, my bum up.
I think so.
And I just had to pretty much dig deep from the moment I exited the shore. And my departing words from Mexico were, I'll be finished when it's done.
That's, wow. Can only imagine, like, after everything you've been through and then coming to this beautiful resting spot in Mexico, these beautiful people and the food, and it's like, now you have to go back out there again by yourself.
Well, I actually had to move myself out of the family's home that I was living with because I said to them, this is too comfortable.
Wow.
This is too far from my reality of what I'm about to go and do. So I moved out of this amazing home and environment onto somebody's boat on the marina. And it was a boat that had no power. It had no luxuries at all. But I had to get closer to what was going to be my reality.
Wow. That's huge. It kind of reminds me when you see people preparing for camping out or hiking in the wilderness, and they'll often sleep on the floor for like weeks before they go. Yeah, that's incredible. During your journey, when you're out there on the ocean in the trips that you've done, what would you say was your lowest moment out there? And in reverse, your most inspiring and best moment out there?
I think the worst moment of anxiety was the calm before the storm. I was waiting and preparing for a cyclone that my weather router had detected. It was going to come across my path. We didn't exactly know what it was going to look like 10 days out, but we knew it was coming. Then, as the data comes in closer and closer, and he was telling me, make sure you got plenty of water in your cabin, make sure you've got extra emergency rations, be prepared to be locked up for, at least 2 days. It's that waiting whilst, the atmosphere changes and there was no air. It was stifling. It was damp. It was hot. The water was dead calm. And my imagination of what was coming, being my first cyclone, it really did get the better of me. But I had a plan, and that was if ever you get in this state of anxiety, you're going to put on a guided meditation and you're going to do something that is going to show an instant result. So for me, making water manually was very proactive of, getting an instant result. So with every single pump, I'm watching that water level rise in my bottle. I know that I'm making reserves of water. And I also took a tissue salt for anxiety as well. So I had this little homeopathic medical kit, and one of the jars was labelled anxiety. Now that is the one and only time I ever had to use it, was in this very first cyclone waiting period, because I just didn't know what to expect. So what I learned in that moment was that we often imagine things to be way worse than it's going to be. And strategy is essential. So my strategy, put on your guided meditation, do something that's going to give an instant result, a feel-good factor. It works. So they're very simple philosophies, but very, very powerful. So I think the calm before the storm, and also into inspirational moments. I mean, the night sky, every night without fail, I would look up in absolute awe. My jaw dropped with, oh, wow. So for me to learn the benefits and the values of being in awe and trying to include that into our everyday life, it's so uplifting. I felt like energized every time I did it. And it was this almost like a reborn feeling. Yeah, to learn the value of being in awe of, and if you look around, Mother Nature, there's so many opportunities. A lightning strike, an uninterrupted rainbow. These for me were the moments that were just things that I could even recall later. If I needed to have a boost, I would remember the pot of dolphins that just appeared. Wow. I would remember, oh my God, what about the moon the other night? You know, the way it danced on the water, and, you know, or when the ocean was not being particularly cooperative, I said to myself, okay, so we're going to learn to dance. So I created all these little things, you know, like, oh, so today's going to be the quick step. Oh, it's the foxtrot. Oh, no, some days it was so graceful and so beautiful. It's like, oh, this is just the perfect waltz, you know, and I could go into this meditative state and I could just shut my eyes and it was just so rhythmic and so perfect. I learned that I've just got to change the way I look at things, reframe it. Yeah. I can now do that in my normal everyday life, you know, in first world. And I sort of try to encourage people now just to take yourself out of it to get a new perspective. So put a fresh head on. You know, this is another thing that I used to say out there. Okay, Michelle, you just got to put a fresh head on. And I actually visualize myself getting this helmet and putting it on. And in the shield of the helmet, it played a whole new picture of what I was seeing. Wow. So I even do that now. And, you know, these are little things that are developed or were developed when I was stripped bare. I was stripped free from all of life's distractions, which is the privilege of what I've done, because people will never know that. Do you know what I mean? They're never going to know the benefits and what comes of it and how resourceful you become through it. So hopefully I can just share these little techniques that I used that you can put practically in first world.
Wow. I could ask you so many questions right now, and I don't know if we have time for all of them, but I was in my mind, I'm like, what a privilege to be out there and in the ocean, even though that's scary, like by yourself. You've seen things that most people have never seen or maybe will never see, and just hearing you describe that and how you embraced all the elements. And I love when you talk about the dance and how you have mentally adapted and made beauty out of every single situation. You can truly see these amazing ingredients that have helped you even do what you've done. And I wanted to ask you, you talked a lot about meditation. How important is it to have the right resources? And if you could share with us some of those resources that did help you. And I know you speak a lot about Dr. Joe Dispenza and his work. Who are they for you and how important is that?
So Joe Dispenza and Jose Silva. So I did the Silva Ultra Mind Control Method workshop. And he's got, 12 or 14 techniques which you develop your own faves, you know what I mean? So I had 3 or 4 that were my go-to, my favorites. I practiced them religiously with a lot of discipline in the initial phase to the point where I absolutely trust them. I think having the guided stuff for me was really valuable because in those moments of overwhelm and despair, it is difficult sometimes to block out the voices of doubt, of fear, etc. Being able to just listen and do as you're told, they tell you close your eyes, they tell you to take notice of your breath, they tell you, they do the body scan where you just go through and they help you get into that beautiful alpha state. So I tell everybody, just get some guided stuff and start there. And then you become so addicted to it because you feel the benefits within your body. When you come out of the meditation, you see the benefits in how people respond to you because you've changed. You've changed your state of mind. There's no side effects. And I try and break it down by saying it is not rocket science. It's simply remove yourself from some distractions, shut your eyes. When we do this, we are now changing our brainwave state to the alpha state where we are still completely conscious of what's going on around us. However, we are now going, into a slower brainwave state. So all of those states of despair, anxiety, overwhelm, they're replaced with this beautiful sense of calm. And it's available to everybody. Anyone and everyone can do it. Everybody has access to this. And life doesn't have to be that hard. And if you put the discipline in and the time to remove yourself from those distractions, the benefits will come back to you to a point where you don't want to miss a day.
Yeah. Oh my gosh, that's so powerful. It's like once you experience the good, the benefits of after going through all of that hardship and mental preparation, the meditation, it's like I've even noticed it in my own life. When you taste the goodness, you never want to go back.
Yeah.
You can't go back.
Yeah. Once you see it and feel it, you can't unsee it, you know?
Yeah. And I would love to highly encourage our viewers and our listeners that take courage and go on that journey, because it's always going to be really hard at the start. And you've got an incredible example here in Michelle, and as someone who's really been through it, and look at what she has experienced now and the kind of life that she gets to live now. And I know it's still only just beginning, and there's so much more that you're about to walk into. That's truly inspiring.
Thank you.
I want to talk about your rowing journey and life on the boat. First of all, I know you were out there by yourself, and you mentioned that you had a gentleman who was helping you navigate. Believe it was through radio. How important is it to have the right team? And I know you mentioned that when you embark on the journey, you start attracting the right people. How important is that? And what kind of team did you have that have helped back you on this journey?
Yeah, so my team, who were carefully selected for their skill set, for their reputation, their reliability, it was in fact the backbone to my success. It was the key to my success. I wouldn't have done it without them. Roger Badham, my weather router, the two questions I asked him at the very beginning was, A, are you well? What I mean by that is, will you be around for the duration of this row? I can't have you start and then pull out halfway through. So I needed someone to be absolutely reliable and in it from beginning to the end. And also, obviously, what he's done in the past. And he was familiar with ocean rowing. He had a very good idea of how my boat would move with currents and what to be looking for. So, and then, the rest of my team, I had an event doctor, I had a safety officer, and then my moral support team. So that's my friends, my family. The most important thing that I think they all have in common is, while they don't know anything about rowing, they all knew me. They knew me personally. That was something that I think I learnt when I was doing the 1,000,000 metre, to have that moral support where people knew when to offer a word of advice or when to say nothing and just say, Michelle, suck it up, sweetheart, because this is what you wanted to do. They knew the right things to say. They didn't want to just be my saviour and send a chopper out to collect me because I was doing it tough. So it was really important for me to have that support. And I think it all just came together very organically, very naturally, again, because I had clarity with what I wanted to create. And it did, it just came.
Wow. Yeah. I love that so much. So you're on the boat now, you're in the middle of the ocean. What were some random or unexpected things that happened or that you faced while you were out there?
The most random one, and certainly wasn't in any of my fine print, was the shark landing on my deck. So, of a night time, it was like a feeding frenzy around and under my boat, and all day they'd swim together in perfect harmony. I had sharks, I had fish, I had turtles, I had, everything in between, little tiny soldier fishes. And once the sun went down, it was feeding time. This shark was launching out of the water in chase of the fish, and the fish were staying close to my hull because I guess to them it was protection. And he just happened to land on my deck. So next thing you know, I hear this ruckus on the deck, and I'm like, it's sundown, it's almost dark. Oh my God, something's on my deck. And I look out of my hatch in disbelief. I'm like, there is a shark flapping around on my deck. So that was probably the most random thing that I would never have imagined. Wow. And then there was things in the sky that I've never seen before in my life that I'm like, when I mentioned it to my weather outer, he actually did ask me if perhaps I've been drinking or if I was smoking something. So, you know, that's how I know it was very random.
I remember you mentioning to me about your little friend who joined you, the bird.
Oh, and then I had bird life that, you know, this was very spiritual. Rowing, minding your own business in your own little world, and I happened to just look sideways. Well, actually, I felt its wings flapping, the breeze of his wings flapping against my, you know, like on my skin. And I looked, and he is completely at eye level, eyeballing me for an extended period of time, to the point where I was like, oh my God, like, what are you trying to tell me? You know, like, have you been sent? Is there something you're trying to message? Anyway, and what I took from it was he was an angel. He was my guardian angel on my shoulder telling me you're not alone and you're going to be fine. You're safe. And I honestly felt as though I had guardian angels all around me. And I even called one day. I said, I'm going to meet my dragon today. So I had just finished listening to Waking Up in 5D with Maureen St. Germain. And she talks about the fifth dimension. And I decided today's the day I'm going to meet my dragon. So I was looking for signs. I was looking for shapes of dragons in the clouds. Every bird that flew by, I was saying, are you my angel? Are you my dragon? And this bird, no word of a lie, drops in the water right next to my oar. So he's less than 2 meters off my boat. He sat like a duck in the water. Then he took flight, did a lap, and landed on my oars on the bar across from, you know, that goes from stern to bow. And then he took off again, and then he landed on my bow, and he stayed there for days. And he only left to go and eat. So I would witness this. He'd fly off next to me, dive down, eat a fish, and he'd come straight back to his post. So, you know, when these things happen, I say you can't make this stuff up, man. Okay. And I put things like this down to the reason why I never use the word alone or lonely in my vocab. I never felt alone. I felt like, you know, all of the well wishes and the intentions and the prayers of everybody who was willing me to finish this thing, it traveled across the water, and I felt their presence. And then they showed up by being a pod of dolphins or the bird or, you know, the even the night sky, the stars in the sky. I just felt like it was everybody's positive presence.
It was all around.
Just enveloping me, you know.
Wow, that's so amazing.
Like I would get goosebumps. Goosebumps to me are truth bumps.
Yeah.
Like when these things would happen, my whole body would just goosebump.
Wow. It's so amazing to hear that, because when I first met you and learnt about your story, one of the first things that came to my mind as my own sort of struggle was the fear of being out there on this boat alone for months. In my mind, I'm like, how the heck did she do this? Like, how? Because I'm such a people person, and I always wonder, like, how the heck could I do that? I mean, I'm sure you went through your own struggles, but hearing that you felt so loved and guided and protected. And I love that you've brought that up, because as someone who's a believer myself, I believe and I trust in God. It is that opening of my mind and heart to that love that does exist all around us that has helped enable me to feel that. And whenever I'm in fear, when I remember that, and like you said, all the prayers, all the love that was coming towards you from the team, the support, your own prayers within yourself, because you were so open to that, you were feeling that. And I love that so much, because for anyone out there, if you're in a state where you're feeling fear all the time, or anxiety, or those dark depressive thoughts, it's like what we were talking about before. There is an opposite to that. And in this world, it's so easy to fall into those patterns and to feel those things. But like you said, if we put on a new head, a new helmet, and change our perspective internally and externally, we can access that love that is available, as you said, for all of us. And that was a beautiful expression and example of that.
Oh, wow. Well, when I saw something in the sky that I'd never seen before, I just kept sending it love as well. And I imagined it as, love hearts just kept popping out, pop, 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 like going up to this thing. I'm sending it love. But I also had a whole group of people, the Silver family, my Silver graduate family, programming for me. And I would just tell them what my struggle was, and they would all go and do some kind of group programming, healing together. There's just so much power in it, when everyone gets together with the common intention, the way it multiplies and the way it travels, it's palpable. I could feel it.
Wow. Oh my gosh, I love this so much. This is so good. I know you talked about seeing like insane things and out there, which is so amazing. And this is so funny. I remember when I first met you, the day I met you, I think one of the questions I asked you is like, did you see aliens? Yeah. Do you think that you saw ships out there? And was there pirates? Or did you have a fear of pirates?
Yeah, and that's a common question. And what people don't know is that pirates don't do big crossings. They stay close to coastlines because they don't carry the fuel to do a full ocean crossing. So, there's certain parts of the world that have pirate activity, and they're very known, you know what I mean? So obviously there's certain precautions you can take if you're going to be in those areas. But aliens, look, you know what? I do believe there is life out there beyond.
In the universe.
Somewhere in that galaxy. I do not believe we can be the only things living. No way at all. Yeah. My mind has been blown and expanded by this whole journey. I mean, even in my mental preparation and what I've learned through, doing the Silver workshop, and how we can connect telepathically, how we can heal remotely. My mind's just been absolutely blown.
I would love to experience what you've experienced. Like, I'm always so curious about what's out there and to see the lights and all that kind of stuff, but I don't think I'd have the courage to do an ocean trip. Maybe with you. Like, if I went on a boat with you, I would do it. And it was like for a couple of days. Maybe we could do a mini vlog. That would be fun. But I want to take us to the moment. I remember you sent me some videos of your journey, and there was this one video that really touched my heart. And it was when you were finally landing, when you were finally docking after this really long trip, and you had this red sparkler in your hand that someone on a boat had quickly given you for that end shot. What was that feeling like? Like, you've been away from society for months, out there by yourself, and suddenly you're seeing the lights, the city, the people. What was that moment like on the point of arrival?
I would say the two strongest emotions was, firstly, it was relief, and second, it was joy. And I said to myself, as I was coming in for those last, 100 meters, my healing will begin at the last stroke, is what I said. So healing in terms of, my body needed to rejuvenate, needed to regenerate. I needed to go through all of those rebuilding, my mobility, my stability, my strength, everything. So it was of pure relief to be safe again, or to feel safe again, and just pure joy, and knowing that I can go and stand under, unlimited water, all these little things we take for granted, and have a fluffy towel, a towel to dry myself, and to not feel salt crusted again, to have nice, soft, silky skin, like fresh sheets. Oh my God, what about like sinking my teeth into an apple? Wow. Crunchy, fresh. These are the things that you fantasize over while you're out there. And then coming into the end of the Pacific Row was actually quite different. it was met with contradicting emotions. Sad that it's over, because knowing I now have to re-enter into first world and first world demands. So, having an inbox, having to be responsible for paying rent, groceries, just those things like that was quite overwhelming for me when I first came home. Obviously, I have a greater level of appreciation for things like fresh sheets and standing at the sink with the water running and stuff like that. I had 3 sets of sheets on the Pacific row that I could change my bedding 3 times. So the first time I changed my sheets was on day 118. And I remember just the excitement of getting in my cabin that night. So, I made a very special effort. I actually even washed my hair. I was very extravagant that day. I used fresh water to wash my whole body just so I could really maximize this feeling of having a fresh sheet underneath me. It was like, oh, how good is this? But these little tiny things that boost your morale so much are so important. And we can do this in life as well, just in everyday life. We can boost our own morale by creating these little things. You bring your sheets in off the clothesline and they're crunchy and they're, just now get in bed and just like really revel in it and really appreciate it. It's got a lot of feel-good factor.
Oh my gosh, I can only imagine. I love that. It's funny as you were talking, because I know you're a foodie as well. What were you eating out there?
Well, the food situation got quite miserable by about day 130 when I realised I have no more chocolate on board. I'd run out of all my peanut butter, all my Nutella, all the feel-good things that, were my go-to when I needed a pick-me-up. But it made me realise how much I go to food for, that feel-good factor. So I had a very sharp sugar detox, not by choice, but because I poorly rationed my favourite stuff. So I lived on dehydrated meals, and, if I did it again, I would certainly change that list. I would eat a lot more oats, a lot more cereal, granola style stuff, just for its nutritional worth, but also its feel-good factor, and I could jazz it up with fruit and nuts, with a spoonful of Nutella and a spoonful of peanut butter with your oats. OMG. That's just a taste and combo sensation that can't be underestimated. For everything, for caloric value, everything I had to have a high calorie value. I was consuming between 5,000 and 6,000 calories a day, which is a lot. For a female, she would normally consume between 12 and 1,400. Yeah, my dehydrated meals, lots of rice, protein powder. I had energy drinks. I had hydration gels and high carbohydrate gels as well for quick energy, which were really good for doubling up, in a 600 ml bottle of water. So I had to think of ways I could jazz up my water as well, because that's all I had for 240 days. It was room temperature at best. By the time your bottle sits on the deck in the heat of the sun, my water was probably always 30 plus degrees. So you're thinking of things like an icy cold drink, sucking on an ice cube, a spoonful of ice cream.
Oh my goodness. What was the first meal that you had when you got back, and what was that like?
So I had a special request bag made by my friends. They turned up at the finish line with cucumber, celery, capsicum, carrots, and in that same bag they had a Reese peanut butter cup. That was the first thing I put in my mouth. And then, yes, I was, dipping my celery in jars of peanut butter. My first actual meal was a burger from where we were staying, burger and fries. And I tell you what, a burger had never tasted so great.
Wow. My mouth's watering thinking about it.
I know, because you're a foodie as well.
Love food. Especially chips. I am a chip addict. Everyone.
Confessed.
Yes. Oh my gosh, that's so good. Now you're back on shore, you're back to land, back to crazy society. I'd love to get into your thought process, because I know that we've talked a lot about, as we say, exiting the matrix and breaking limiting belief systems. You being out there, removing yourself from all of this craziness. What were your findings, and what were some of the things that really stood out to you, and how important is it to put ourselves in an environment or remove ourselves or get into nature to break limiting belief systems, certain things in society that could control or sway our minds a certain way, and finding truth?
So I do refer it as to exiting the matrix, when I go on these adventures, and it's one of the main draw cards for me to do what I do. It's the opportunity to get out of everything that is so programmed. And I think when I came home, that's one of the first things I really noticed. I walked into Coles to do my very first grocery shop, and I walked straight back out. I could not. I was overwhelmed by, the fake lights and the noise that is fed on a loop over the speakers. I remember just looking at a sea of people that I felt looked like robots. They were just moving so mechanically. And I thought, did I always see this? Or is it because I'm now super sensitive to it because I've had unlimited time and space? Out there, I had unlimited time and space. So I feel like this is almost like people are living some kind of a reality TV show. I don't know. I just feel like they're living to a program. And of course, while you're moving with the masses, in that 9-to-5 world, everyone's on the thing together, everyone comes back together. And there's just this like movement, I feel, that happens without thought.
Yeah.
And I love the fact that I know what it feels like to be completely free from that. And now I try to recreate it as much as I can in my normal world. Yes, look, you're always going to have some form of contactable, Wi-Fi stuff. I have to be able to check emails and there is social media. We do use them. I do use it. Whilst I take lots of measures, for example, I don't own a TV, I don't listen to a radio, I don't read a newspaper. They are my conscious decisions, so that I don't have to feel too much a part of everything that is going on and programmed in my world. I see it as programmed. So I take what measures I can to remove myself, and I look at the row and all my adventures as disconnecting to reconnect. And that's what I try to encourage people now, is to put it away for extended periods of time so that you can go inwards and you can reconnect with yourself and just be in the present moment. You can't do that when you've got this thing, glued to your hip, or you're constantly being bombarded with visual stuff, going on. Yeah, the power of disconnecting.
Yeah, oh my gosh, I can massively relate to that, and the way you have experienced it is just next level. Like actually being physically, emotionally, mentally, spiritually away from all of this construct is truly incredible. And even for myself, if you're not an adventurer or you can't get on a boat and escape society, something that I've done in my own life, and me and my mom always talk about this, is just getting into nature and spending time out there. And like you said, the importance of switching off. I try not to watch much TV. Being in the fashion world, sometimes, or entertainment, I have to be in that space. But like you said, putting the phone away in a drawer or somewhere and just taking that time out, you really feel a difference spiritually, mentally, and even emotionally. And I don't remember exactly who said this, but someone told me, have you ever thought about when you're scrolling through social media, through all the posts, when you're looking at every post and flicking through it, good or bad, you're actually receiving the thoughts and energy and emotions of what has been put into that post. It's going directly into you because your eyes are like the eye gate of the soul. And I always imagine when you're looking at how much of that are we taking on without realizing it, and what demons are coming with that. And we're fighting things that don't even belong to us half the time. And as a creative, I find it massively limits creativity and dampens intuition, creative thought. That's super, super important and amazing.
Yeah, and I just think, even if you come up with some little rules and rituals that when you're in a group setting, you all agree, everybody must agree. You put the phone away. Don't even, take it off the table, go and put it somewhere so you can't even be tempted by pick up, look at the screen, see who's messaged, who's liked, who's whatever. Whatever it is that addiction to this thing, remove it from your reach so that, you can just really enjoy the people around you and the moment.
Absolutely. And there's nothing like living in the present. I want to ask you, Michelle, after everything that you've been through, taking these crazy journeys and really seeing some of your dreams and visions come true in this lifetime, what would be, at this point in time, one of your biggest learnings or realizations that you have come across?
That hard times pass. This too shall pass. It has real meaning to me now. And the sun always comes out to shine. So I go to bed and I say that to my flatmate, darling, if you didn't get it right today, don't worry, because tomorrow's another chance. The sun will come out to shine. So don't sweat the small stuff. Don't get caught up on the idea of perfection, because that will sabotage you and it will, limit your progress, everything. So, I've learnt to not take life so seriously as well. Have a laugh. What goes on when you laugh? It's an immediate immune boost. The benefits of laughing, it's infectious. You can change the vibration of the room. So, don't take yourself too seriously. Don't take life too seriously. Know that this too shall pass, and know that we have the power within to be the creator of whatever it is we want. And what we are seeing in our life, it is a mirror of what we're projecting.
Wow. For somebody out there who's watching and listening right now, what would be one thing they can do for themselves in this moment right now?
I would say to sit down and write down what is it that you truly desire, and now have a look at where you are placing your focus and attention, because that's where your energy is going. So if you can redirect all of that attention to that desire, ask yourself, what would I have to walk like? What would I have to talk like? Who would I have to get up and look like today for that to happen? I guarantee you the way people respond around you are going to be different, and your results are going to change.
Wow, it's so powerful. So powerful. And Michelle, where is your next adventure? Where are we going?
Where are we off to? Does the ocean beckon? Yes, it does. So I've got a perfectly great boat that's got, another crossing in her. The Indian is on my mind, the Indian Ocean, because it would give great closure. It would complete a solo circumnavigation. And yes, she's tried, tested, and proven. So I've got the Indian on my mind, but then I've also got another ocean going event that is actually sailing. That's also on my mind, and that's in a 5.8 meter. It's called the Mini Globe Race. That would also involve me building another boat. So again, it's, that whole regime and the discipline and that really immersing yourself in the project that gets me excited. So I can see those two on the horizon.
Wow, I can't wait to see that. I'm so excited. And Michelle, where can people view your boat, this beautiful magic piece of equipment you put together that got you from Sydney to Mexico? Where is that?
So she's currently sitting in the Maritime Museum in Darling Harbour, and she's on display in the water. You can go touch her, feel her, and ooh and ah over her.
Michelle, where can we find you? Your social media handles, channels, website?
I'm Michelle Lee Solo Rower. So if you go to Instagram, Michelle Lee Solo Rower, go to Facebook, Michelle Lee Ocean Rower. And of course, LinkedIn, I'm there as well. If you just Google Michelle Lee Ocean Rower, a whole lot will come up. My YouTube channel will come up as well.
Amazing. So I'm going to link all of Michelle's details under this video so you can check them out, find her, keep up to date with what she's doing, and check out some of the amazing adventures she's gone on. There's some real raw footage out there too. It's pretty incredible. As we come to a close, after everything you have done up to this point, everything that you've been through, what you've learnt, experience, what is the legacy that you would like to leave on this earth for the people and the planet?
Oh, I'd love people just to know how powerful you are if you go within, and the tools and everything we have is within us to heal ourselves. You know, this is a huge thing, and the ability to manifest. When you truly believe in that desire and yourself, you can manifest anything.
Wow, I love that so much. This has been an insane, incredible interview. And even though I've known you for some time now, I always learn something new from you. And I just wanted to credit you that meeting you has actually inspired me and given me the courage to actually go through with this podcast. This thing that I've been planning for years and never quite pressed play and like made it happen. And I have to thank you for that. Hearing your story and what you went through, I was like, damn it, Lakshmi, just do it. Say yes.
Yes.
So I thank you so much for what you've done. Thank you for having the courage to follow your dreams. Thank you for not giving up. And thank you for sharing. And it's people like you who've unlocked the door for the rest of us to come through. And I'm so freaking grateful for you and for being here in my studio today.
Wow, absolute pleasure and privilege. And thank you.
So everyone, I'd like to end with one of my favorite Bible verses. And I always get a word depending on who I'm speaking to. And one that came up for me that reminded me of you so much was from the Bible, and it's Matthew 17:20, and the verse is, "Nothing shall be impossible for you."
I love that. Oh, wow. That's beautiful.
I love it so much, and it really illustrates what you have demonstrated, and it's all about even the tiniest bit of faith and belief can knock down mountains, even the smallest seed, and this is exactly what you've done. So Michelle, as we end our podcast, I wanted to ask if you wouldn't mind praying a mini prayer, one of your prayers for our audience, something to instill life, hope, and encouragement into their minds and into their hearts, that they will see their purposes realized and dreams fulfilled.
Oh, this is an easy one. I used to say it at the close of every single rowing shift out there in the middle of the Pacific, and it was, to my angels, guides, my dragons, to divinity, source energy, and everyone godlike who looks after me, thank you.
Wow, thank you. Amen. Thank you, Michelle.
My pleasure.
Thank you so much. Thank you, guys. Thank you so much for joining us at Lakshmi B Podcast. This is Tales and Tea with Lakshmi B, and I will see you in the next episode. Yay, we did it. So I forgot one thing. In light of your trip and sailing these incredible oceans, we have a little gift that my mum Susan, the bee in Lakshmi B, has specially prepared, and it is from the Lavender Cocoa Kitchen. I'm just going to go get it.
Oh, I think it's food. Oh, Lakshmi knows me so well.
We would like to gift you... We would like to gift you your very own chocolate rowing boat.
Oh my God, that is gold. Oh wow, that is such a sweet treat. That is, yeah, You know the way to my heart. Thank you. Oh my God,
That's
I'll
so
share
cute.
it with you. Can't wait to eat that. That is so special. Thank you so much. I love it.
Thank you for joining me at Lakshmi B. If you were inspired or encouraged by this episode, please like and share with your family and friends. You can find out more about us at lakshmib.com and our socials at lakshmib. Subscribe and join us on this journey. Together, we can all help make a global difference by simply doing what we can, using what we already have, and becoming the great people we were created to be.